Imagine stepping into a completely new world at 15, where every hallway, every accent, every school rule feels like a puzzle you weren't given the pieces for. That was my reality at 15 when I first came into the UK, navigating the UK school education. To give you guys a bit more context, when I was schooling back in Ghana, I was in SHS 1, which is sort of like year 10, in the UK. So when I was applying to secondary schools in the UK, I applied to year 10, but I was 15 at the time when I was applying to the UK secondary, schools for year 10. So the advice we were given was to apply to year 11 instead of year 10, because the year I was applying to year 10, I was almost turning 16. And you write your GCSEs when you're 16, so it made sense for me to apply to year 11. So I applied to a bunch of secondary schools for year 11, but the thing about my application to secondary schools for year 11 was that I applied during this period, late April to early May, okay? And if you know the UK educational system, we write GCSE exam in May, June, okay? So it didn't make sense for the secondary schools to take me in as a year 11 student, having not learned any content, if that makes sense. So for these secondary schools, they wouldn't take me in because it doesn't make sense for you to take a student in during this May, June period when this person has not learned anything in the GCSE, specification. You're just taking a student in to write exams they would literally go and fail. So they did not take me in. The advice most secondary schools gave was for me to go and apply to sixth form or colleges because I was turning 16. And usually you start sixth form or college at 16/17, depending on, what month you were born in. So then we started applying to sixth forms, okay? So when we started applying to sixth form, I wanted to do, science courses because I was doing general science back in Ghana. So I wanted to do science or maths courses in sixth form. So the sixth form asked for qualifications. Okay, they asked if I had GCSEs. I said no. So they were like, okay, if you don't have GCSE, what other qualifications do you have? And I said I have my BEC. So I brought my BEC grades, but they said my BEC grades would not get me into sixth form because they need something equivalent to GCSEs, which is WASSCE. WASSCE is equivalent to GCSEs. And I did not have WASSCE at the time because I had just started SHS in Ghana. I don't have any WASSCE qualification. So now there's a dilemma. What do? I can't go to secondary schools because of my age and the time I was applying. And I also can't do sixth form because I don't have the qualifications they need. So this was a very big dilemma. At a point I was like, you know what? I might just as well go back to Ghana, you know what I mean? But my sixth form offered me a course. They offered me a 1-year access course. And in this 1-year access course, they offered me 4 GCSE subjects: biology, math, chemistry, and English language. 4 GCSEs in 1 year. And I took it because that was the only offer at the time I had, because no one would take you in because of your age and your qualifications. And I genuinely can't explain the relief I felt when they offered me this course. I was like, oh my God, I need to show you guys how grateful I am for this opportunity, because for me, it felt like I had to go back to Ghana, to continue my education, because it did not feel like I had a chance in the UK educational system. So I was so grateful. So I remember, having given this opportunity. When I went back home, I had to wait, obviously, for the next academic year for me to start school. It was a lot of loneliness because my siblings had started school. You feel a bit depressed because everyone will go to work, your siblings will go to school, and it's just you at home, So it did feel a bit isolating and depressing at the time, but I was also hopeful because I was just taking the days, the hours, the weeks, just looking at the calendar for September to come for me to start school. So I was anticipating and waiting for this time. During this period, I was also like desperate and lost because I was like, what if they're smarter than me? Because I've heard they have a better educational system, they have better school resources. So I remember, going through Google, searching up English language courses at GCSEs. I started, watching Romeo and Juliet, Jekyll and Hyde, doing English literature because I was told I was going to do English language GCSE. So I was thinking, oh,
if I'm going to do English language, I might just as well, learn the poems now.
Learn the, codes of the poems, know the stories and stuff like that. But I actually didn't have to do it because I was learning literature instead of language. And English language in the UK is still different from what is in Ghana. So I was learning desperately anything so I could, not be behind if I start school. Okay, and that is actually why I'm making this video. I'm making this video for the 15-year-old me who was so desperate, who did not know where to start from, who did not know who to like go to, because and you can imagine the excitement and the, exuberance and the, all the energy I had starting GCSEs in September. I was so excited to meet new people, assimilate into the UK educational system, okay? But I was met with a lot of uncertainty, okay? I remember the first few weeks when I started GCSEs, I could not hear my teachers. I could barely hear them because the accent was new to me. I always looked at them, not trying to understand what they was teaching, but trying to decipher what they were saying because the accent was new to me, I remember my first day in school. I was clueless. It's a big school. I don't know where to go. I don't know where my classes are. And I remember going to my first chemistry class and everyone was seated. I was like, oh my God, am I late? Because I felt so unserious being there when everyone was there. It's like, it was given like you are not a serious student, you know what I mean? Like on the first day, you should be on time. You should be punctual, okay? And during the first few months of my GCSEs, I was getting 4s, basically, yeah. On my homework, they'll mark it and it'll be a 4. Like, I felt so stuck, honestly, because it was a new educational system. I was navigating and I was getting 4s in English language, maths, science, everything. I was getting 4s, basically. And I wanted to improve because if I wanted to do A-levels, I needed at least, 6s or 7s to do A-levels. So I would constantly ask my teachers, how do I improve in this subject? I'll go to interventions, I'll search on YouTube to see how I can improve in my subject. So I was going all out for my subject, just trying my best to see how I can improve in these subjects. But eventually, as time went on, I was getting familiar with the way my teachers spoke. I could hear them a bit more clearly and understand them a bit more better. Okay. And during my GCSEs, I also wanted to engage in school activities and extracurricular activities. The first bold step in that direction was to put myself forward to be a student council representative for my class. And I was so skeptical when I put myself forward because no one knows me. I am just a random person, who just came into the UK. I did not think people would vote for me. But ironically, when I stood for this position, people voted for me because not a lot of people was actually interested in this position. Not a lot of people were serious about, working for this position. So I did stand for being a student council member, and I remember standing in front of everybody, pitching about why I want to be a student council representative for the class, and they casted the vote, and I got the second highest vote, so I was selected to represent my class to be a student council member. And I was so excited because I stood there pitching myself to be a student council representative, knowing that they might not vote for me because they did not really know me, and I also did not really know them as well. But I did it regardless of my self-doubt and my, low self-esteem. I still put myself forward, and from there as well, I became a mental health ambassador. So there was this mental health conference held at one of the colleges where many colleges came together, and it was basically educating us about mental health, mental health awareness. And I remember one of the workshops that day was about men's mental health, and that was the first time I got enlightened about men's mental health and how important their mental health is as well, because they have a higher suicidal rate. And from there, I also put myself forward to become a mental health ambassador for my school. I also collaborated with my friends to create a Snapchat group during GCSE season to, help other students and ourselves to revise during GCSEs. That group actually still exists, but it's low-key dead now. And during my GCSEs, I did, get a lot of accolades and praises. I did get I've got 2 awards during my GCSEs, the best English language student. I don't know how I got that award, guys, because I never thought I was that good in English language. I got the best chemistry award as well. And I also didn't think I was that good at chemistry, but looking back at my GCSE results in chemistry, maybe they were right, because I didn't think I was good enough like that in chemistry. So I did get these awards during my GCSEs. And it actually wasn't until January to like April there where I started actually figuring out the study method that worked for GCSEs. So I started blurting. I was introduced to flashcards. I actually never used flashcards in my life. Blurting flashcards, doing past papers online. These things were new to me, using YouTube and things to help me, do better. So my grades started picking up. I started getting 6s in my sciences, 7s here and there, 8s sometimes in my mocks. So my grades started to pick up slowly. Okay. And I remember watching this one YouTuber, and he was like, you need to aim for all 9s in your GCSEs. I was like, bro, like that is too ambitious. Why do I have to, aim for all 9s? But he said something that I still remember till today, that if you aim for the stars, okay, and you miss, you at least land on the moon. And that was kind of what kept me through the GCSE revision season. I kept, revising, working hard for, my GCSE exam. So at this point, I'm kind of like well versed with the UK educational system. April, June came again, GCSE exam season, and I've written my exams already. I've written my GCSE exams. I'm just sitting at home waiting for my results. And whilst sitting at home, I volunteer, at this warm space. I still do volunteer ads. I start social media randomly. I don't even know why I started social media. I just woke up one day and said, you know what, why not start social media? So during the GCSE waiting period for my results, I was just volunteering, making random videos and just waiting for my results. So results day finally comes, and I'm so nervous. I don't know what I'm going to get, because this is my first, exams in the UK. And I remember going early in for my results, and I was opening my results. Guys, you just watch the video. Watch my results day video, actually. Is it okay? Are you sure? You good, Samuela? Are you okay? Samuela? I opened my results and I was shocked. I was sad. I was excited. I was like, oh, I got 9s in biology and chemistry. I got an 8 in maths. I saw the 6 in English and I was like, yeah, I low-key wanted a 7, like a 7 in English language, but you know what, it's fine. A B in English language is not a bad grade. So I did get A star, B, which is a 9, 2 9s in biology and chemistry, and 8 in math, and a B, which is like a 6 in English language. I also got a distinction in my spoken English language, spoken language. Okay. And the reason why I share my story online and I make the videos I make about GCSEs and A-levels is because each year there are tons of people who are like my 15-year-old self back years ago, who are clueless about the UK educational system. They are clueless about how to, go about GCSEs, how to revise them, where to apply for schools. They are clueless. They don't know anything about this new educational system they are going into. And I want to be that person, that helper who wants to help that 15-year-old me who was clueless about GCSEs, who did not know how to, navigate this system. And that is why I make the videos I make and I do what I do.